Imagine you're alone in the remote Canadian wilderness. There's not a soul around, just dead silence. You bend down to pick a mushroom and look up to see a black bear charging at you in utter silence at full speed. There's no time to think. Only instinct. Only the fight to survive. Unfortunately, this is exactly what happened to 54-year-old Alex Woods. He was working as a forester in British Columbia, Canada. A short, lean man, he had been working in the forest for decades. It was his natural environment. On the morning of June 26, 2019, Woods put on his work vest, which contained a GPS, bear spray, and the tools he needed for his job. He was heading to a remote section of the forest to check for a root disease called armillaria. In the back pocket of his work vest, Alex placed an old axe that had once belonged to his father. He never entered the forest without it. This is how he recalls that day. I'm not great with technology, but I had a GPS and coordinates, so I just set the direction and went no trail, straight through the forest. As I was walking, I saw freshly broken fireweed, so I knew there was an animal nearby. But it's a national park, animals are everywhere. I've worked in the forest long enough to know that Canada is full of bears. That's why I always yell, "Hey bear," when I'm walking alone. Overall, Alex Woods wasn't someone unprepared to meet a bear. He had bear spray. He made noise to announce his presence. As an experienced forester, he did everything right. Alex reached a deep ravine where a slope covered in hemlock and balsam led down to a small creek. The slope was steep and filled with fallen, charred trees. About a year earlier, a large forest fire had burned through, leaving a mess of scorched trunks. Alex remembers it like this. I heard the creek flowing below, so I started yelling even louder because I knew this was the kind of spot where you could easily surprise a bear. The burned forest made the area fairly open with good visibility. I had made it about 3/4 of the way down the slope and spotted a few morel mushrooms. I started collecting them, but then checked to make sure I was still on course and kept making noise to avoid any bear encounter. As I bent down for another mushroom, I looked up and was horrified to see a huge bear charging straight at me. Looking around, Alex saw a slanted tree wedged between two burned trunks. He literally scrambled up onto it. But at that very moment, he grabbed his bear spray canister, the kind forest rangers carry specifically for situations like this. He pulled it out and tried to use it. Here's how Alex recalls it. It was coming at full speed, completely silent, from about 30 meters downhill. I looked around and saw a leaning tree wedged between two burnt trunks. I literally launched myself onto it. But at the same time, I grabbed my bear spray canister, the one we foresters carry for situations like this. I pulled it out and tried to use it. Here's what Alex recalls. I pulled out the bear spray but couldn't get the damn safety cap off. The next second, the bear's head was right in front of me and I felt its teeth on me. I screamed as loud as I could and hit it, landing a blow on its lower jaw. The bear jumped back a few meters, but then it circled around and tried to bite again. Since I was higher up, I kicked it hard in the face and screamed even louder. I think that scared it. It backed off and even climbed onto another burned tree about 2 meters away from me. For a moment, I thought the bear was scared and that it was over. But it wasn't backing down. In a panic, I still couldn't get the cap off the bear spray, and then I remembered the axe. This is what he says. I always felt that one day I'd need that axe. And when the bear started climbing down from the tree, I reached for the back pocket of my vest. Luckily, the zipper had ripped during the struggle, and I could easily grab the axe that had belonged to my father. A few seconds later, the bear was charging at me again. I was lucky to be on a steep slope and above the bear. The fallen trees also slowed it down a bit, so when its mouth got close to my leg, I buried the axe in its head, and luckily for me, the axe worked better than the bear spray. If it weren't for those burned trees, I'd be dead. This short, non-athletic 54-year-old man managed to land just one hit on the bear. But the blow was so powerful that the animal rolled down the slope and ended up lying on its back. Here's how Alex remembers it. The bear was lying on its back and still seemed to be breathing. I kept watching because I didn't want to turn my back to climb up the hill. I didn't want to leave that burned tree. It saved my life. But sooner or later, I had to get out of there. Woods began backing up the slope, then made his way to his car, constantly looking around, expecting another attack. Once he reached people, he reported the attack. British Columbia's Conservation Service responded to the scene, where they found the bear still alive. It was an adult female black bear with cubs. Bear experts confirmed that this was a case of predatory behavior. The bear was actively hunting Woods. Since he had been descending the slope while yelling loudly, the bear definitely knew he was there. It charged him completely silently, without any warning. If the bear had simply wanted to scare him off, it would have made noise, growled, or made bluff charges. Instead, it went straight for the kill. The reason for this behavior is hard to explain. Some foresters suggested drought and food scarcity could be to blame, but the bear was of normal weight for its age and in perfect health. The takeaway from this story is simple. Bear spray should not only be easily accessible, you should practice using it. If Alex had managed to use his spray, the bear would have lived and Alex would have walked away unharmed. The entire encounter would have ended peacefully, with the bear retreating and Alex getting back to work. Here's how Alex Wood sums it up. Bear spray needs to be instantly accessible because it all happens really fast. The whole thing lasted maybe 15 seconds, including the 2 kicks. It was so fast, there just wasn't time to fumble with the safety. And if you ask me, I think the forester survived largely because he didn't panic. He made quick, smart decisions. Alex stayed calm and fought for his life to the end. Someone else might have frozen or tried to run, and the bear would have won. That's the unusual, but very gripping story. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I read them all. And don't forget to like this video.